boy, we'll get this thing done. Hey guys, sure glad you stopped in. You know, where it all began, from the very beginning, the early days, all the nostalgia stuff that you think about, everybody has a story, right? And I think my story is probably no special, no different than anybody else's. But while I can remember it, I'd like to record it. My kids, my grandkids that I don't have yet, you know, family members, friends, someday I'm not going to be here. And it'd be really cool if they can go back and hear my stories and understand where I came from. You know, nobody wants to sit and listen to a big long story. They hear little pieces, for sure, because I'm a storyteller. You guys can tell by now, I'm sure. So, plan on doing this Tales from a Technician in a few videos, so we'll do a series of them. But we're going to start out the very beginning. Hey, so get comfortable. I do hope you enjoy it. Just talked to my mom the other day, and when I was 4 years old, apparently I told her that I wanted to fix cars, especially Volkswagens. I'm on my second Volkswagen, and I haven't worked on it much, but I always connected to them. I don't know why. I like the 57 Chevys, though. I grew out of the Volkswagen thing, trust me. You're about to see. So right about here, I'm going to stick in a photo that's grainy, that's from the 70s. Hope you like it. But it didn't take long that I figured out how to use my hands and take things apart that some of the grown-ups didn't even know. We were camping one time. We had a travel trailer. It was parked somewhere, I think, for a few years, and we'd go once in a while and stay the weekend. And the bathroom door got locked. And it was one of those that doesn't have a little hole on the other side that you can unlock it. It was locked. You weren't getting in there. There was no keys, no nothing, locked. So I guess mom and dad and a little brother, I was in the trailer by myself. And those little square screws on the hinge, I thought, well, I could get something in there. So I dug around and I found a little screwdriver, I think, just would barely fit in there, and I was working them screws out when my dad busted me. What are you doing? I said, well, I figure I can get these screws out. And I was probably 6, 7, probably about my daughter's age. He said, wow, I never even thought of that. So he grabs that screwdriver, and I'll never forget how he seemed so proud of me that I thought of how to get that, you know, got the hinge undone and pulled the door open, unlocked it, and Dad put it all back together. Stuff like that. I just, and I always remember looking at wheels, especially going down the road. I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world to see a semi and see them big wheels. What are them bolts for? What's there? There's a thing in the middle, you know, and some would be shiny and chrome. Oh man, that was my thing, you know. And Dad would have a couple old service manuals. I remember reading a 1966 Motors service manual. So all the American cars were in that book, tune-up stuff, brakes, and I would just read it. At that time, that was my Bible. That book was my Bible. Because if I had a question, I could look and try to figure out what did this, what did that. Because at this point, when I was really even before I was 7, my older brother built plastic models. He'd be there every other weekend on the weekends, you know, and I think Dad would give him a little something to do around the house, and he would build plastic car models. That was just the coolest thing ever. Anytime he was at the table doing that, I was right there watching. Of course, later I'd get in trouble because I'd get him out and I'd try to, you know, I was all on the Hot Wheels and the beer boxes and all that. So I got him down and I'd broke something and got in trouble. And at that moment, I realized how hurt I was that I thought I'd hurt his feelings, and to him it wasn't a big deal. I remember him saying, oh, it's no big deal. But it really hurt my feelings that I did that I made a mistake, and he was my hero. For the end, and he still is. You hear that, Larry? I know you don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. Larry's still around. But for too long, I'd get to begging Mom and Dad to, let me, don't take Dad's, because Dad would change the oil once in a while. I vaguely remember that, and I'd be there wanting to help, and this wrench and that wrench. And I'd always begged and begged and begged, let me do it, let me do it, let me do it, let me do it. And Dad, my dad, well, we'll stick another picture in here because the pictures are fun. They're part of the story. It's just not real until you see the pictures. But finally he realized that, man, I can sit on the couch and do this, and he's changing the oil. Win-win. And it took an act of, like a law, to get him off the couch to come answer a question. And he would, nope, you figure it out, you want to do it. So, and then the time, I'd said it before, he had a 72 Chevy Suburban. We'd always take it out and go fishing, and it was just a big old beast, you know. That thing had holes in the floor, and it was, you know, but I wanted to paint that grill black because it was gray. I begged him for weeks over a summer, begged him and begged him. Finally said, you know what, I'm tired of hearing it, go out there and do it, and just shut up about it. So I did. Got the screwdrivers and whatever tools I thought I needed, went out there, and sure enough, I took the whole front end of that truck apart, the whole surround, took the grill out of the surround. And I remember laying it right there on the concrete sidewalk there in the apartment complex. Psst. Put it all back together. You know, my dad was pretty proud of that because I masked off the Chevrolet emblem. It had a blue one right in the middle. Masked it off real nice. I'd been painting models, doing models, so it's the same thing to me. And he was pretty proud of that. He really thought it looked good, you know. And just tons of stuff like that, you know. And as I got older, we had moved actually to a house. We'd had a house before that had an big old race car garage in the back, and we were never in there, but I'd break into that thing and look around at the old paint cans and junk laying around, and we rented the place, so it wasn't ours. But I'd get behind it, a bunch of weeds, nobody ever cut the grass back there, and there was an old stock car, race car frame with the roll cage and everything. And you know, oh man, that was just about the neatest thing I ever touched in my life. There was wires with duct tape holding the wires on the tubing. There was a couple switches on the dashboard, and I'd be, and I think it actually had a steering wheel if I remember right. So I'd be, you know, you guys see me do it in the videos all the time. Well, that's why. You know, I was daydreaming. Man, I love that stuff. I was a stock car driver all of a sudden, you know. And but eventually we got another house that we did own, and I'm going to say I had to been 15 years old. I had a mini bike that I never finished. It was just the frame and the wheels and the forks, and a 5 horsepower horizontal engine that I had power mechanics. My dad got it for me so I could take it to power mechanics and do my schooling in power mechanics. This is before I could get into, you know, an auto mechanics class or anything. Had that thing running good and all that, and I mounted it on there, and that's where it stopped. But I think I sold it. I sold it for like $80. I used to do slot cars, so I had a slot car track, and I believe I sold that. Sold some other stuff. I was working on lawnmowers by then, here and there, making, you know, a little bit of money, and I had allowance. So for about 6 months, I saved up every penny I could get a hold of, because, man, I'm buying me a car. I'm buying something. Sure enough, in the Trader, I'd read the Trader. Every week came out a new Trader, and Dad would always get it, and I'd read it. And there it was, a 1964 Chevrolet panel truck. It was just a half ton, no picture, $300. Told my dad, I'm calling this guy. I got money, I can buy this. Dad said, Mike, I don't know, you know. And he said, call him, see what he says. I said, I called him. Guy says, yeah, it runs, it drives, and you know, it's ready to go. It's just a little ugly, beat up, from what I remember, right? And I said, okay, I'll call you back. So told my dad, man, let's go. Dad said, all right, let me, I believe my dad called him to get the address and all that. And had my cash in my hot little hands, boy. Dad told me on the way down there, he said, Mike, it don't matter what I say, you're gonna buy this. You're gonna buy it, you're not gonna care a thing about what I say. And I was like, yep, buying it. So that was my first car. The guy even actually drove it. If I remember right, the guy drove it to our house. Then my dad gave him a ride back, somewhere like on near south side of Indianapolis, if I remember right. Could be near east side, I don't remember. But anyway, that's what I worked on. And I get home from school, I'd pop in the back of that, in the front seat of that thing, and I'd drive it around the backyard. We had like 3 acres. I did that every day after school. Drive it around, that's how I learned to drive a clutch. And I was pretty wise, thinking, well, Mom and Dad don't know I'm doing that, and all I had to do is look out the back window and see the trail around in the grass, you know. Truth be known, I took it down the road once or twice. Sorry, Mom, I didn't get in trouble. So then I started high school, and I didn't have my driver's license yet, but I had to go to a different school to get into the auto mechanics program. J. Everett Light. It's part of North Central. And I went to Pike High School. They weren't real far apart, but they're far enough apart for trouble. You know, so, and Mom, I don't know how you're going to get there, you know. And I said, Mom, the guy that rides my bus, he's driving and he's going. I think, you know, maybe he'll drive me. And he didn't live too far away. She said, well, what's his name? So I told him, and I told her where they lived at. And she said, well, when I get to work, I'll figure out their phone number and I'll call and talk to his parents, see if it's cool. Sure enough, yep, it's all cool. Just got to give him gas money, help out with gas money. So the very first morning, here come my old buddy, Alvin Jones. Pulled in the driveway, pick me up, take me to school, our first day at the auto mechanics class, you know. And I'll never forget. It was Hot for Teacher, Motley Crue. And there's a big curve on where Lafayette Road curved on the 62nd Street. Had that song blaring in the, you know. And we was both long hair, so hair was going everywhere, and jean jackets, the whole thing. Alvin ended up being one of my best buddies. And he's going to pop in and out of this series throughout the whole thing. And he's still around. I talk to him on the regular. You know, going to get him on the channel. One way or another, we're going to get him on the channel. But, you know, like within that first week, I believe we were coming back, going down 71st Street, get almost to school. We're behind a semi. It's going real slow. Alvin's, yeah, you know, it's 2 lanes. You know, you can't get around him. The car's coming the other way. And I said, Alvin, that lane's open. Well, it was the grass. And I never thought in this world now I know, don't tell him that. Down the ditch, up over the next road, back over the ditch to pass the past the semi. I bet that semi driver was just like, you know, what are the kids, you know. And we would do that, and then before long we had a group of friends, and we'd be on 465 just racing. I mean, fast as you could go. Somebody, you know, they'd be like, and you look and everybody, and 4 cars, 3 cars, wherever it took, we'd square in this poor innocent bystander driving down the interstate, and then we'd just start slowing down real slow. 30 miles an hour on the interstate. This guy's blocked in, can't go nowhere. We just thought it was the funniest thing. Train tracks, those are the best. Waiting on a train. So you just bump into the guy that's in front of you, as long as you knew him, and his did a burnout. While the guy in front of you is going, holding on to the brakes, going, stop it, Mike, stop it, you know. Oh man, I could go on forever about stories like that. Passing people on the shoulder, just dangerous stuff, you know. And I eventually had wrecked that panel truck pretty quickly, and had an El Camino. Well, my dad wrecked the El Camino before I could even drive it. I could do a whole series on my dad. We probably won't. wrecked it, and when he wrecked it, it cut one of the tires. Never really noticed it. We went and me and Alvin and Dad crammed into that El Camino and bought a front clip, put it in the back. A couple days later, Alvin come over after school, helped me put that front clip on there, and we did it in a couple hours. You know, Alvin was something, boy. He'd come to help me work on a car. He always had his dad would help him. You know, and I always had jobs. I was working at Shoney's. I worked for an air compressor company that built compressors for Snap-on tools, and you know, so I always tried to have a job. But Alvin would always be there to help. What a good dude, you know. But anyway, we always take turns driving each other because somebody's car was broke, and we were leaving the one school, going back to our home school, and got on the interstate. About 85 down the interstate, we hear this kaboom, and it was like slow motion. I'm driving, me and Alvin looked at each other, mouths wide open, and then all heck broke loose. We'd blown a front tire, and I swear it caught the asphalt enough that it looked like we were looking down at the pavement. Got all squirrely, ended up down the ditch. We're like, man, what do we do now? We didn't get hurt, didn't really wreck the car, got really lucky. Here come a tow truck. And he's like, hey, you guys all right? And we're like, yeah. He said, I saw you go down the ditch, and he was going the other way, so he did the U-turn. Just come check on us. You know, the world's just not like that nowadays. He's like, well, where are you trying to go? And I said, well, we're going over to Pike High School. He goes, well, it costs about $60. And I remember telling him, well, I got about 20. He said, that'll do. So, got me up out of the ditch, took me to school, dropped the car off, $20. You know, things like that, man. So that's how I got started to working on cars and doing all this and that. Alvin was in this class with me. Like the first year I had Mr. Chandler, Alvin had Mr. Budgewit. And then the next year you would switch teachers. So we had the one shop and like two separate classrooms. And as a kid, I studied all this stuff, right? So when it come to schoolwork for auto mechanics, I was all about it. You know, I understood a lot of it already. So I did really good in that class. But when it came to Mr. Budgewit, which would have been my senior year in high school, he'd had me and Jeff Miller, another redhead, put us together. I don't know what he was thinking. Putting a crank kit in his own personal car, pull the crank out, back to transmission. You know, we broke all kind of stuff that he didn't find out till years later. But come to graduate in high school, he was left to pick two students of his best students to go to the Plymouth Troubleshooting contest. He asked us if we wanted to do it. And Jeff and I were like, yeah, why not? You know, he goes, well, it seems kind of silly, but we get a motel room downtown Indianapolis, and the contest is at Raceway Park. This is the interesting part of the story. You're going to see why here in a few. I said, well, that's cool. Well, I lived like 8 minutes from IRP, but we were going to get to go downtown, stay in a room and all that. So we go to school and meet the teacher, got our overnight bags and all that, and Mr. Budgewit and drove us in probably his Pontiac Grand Prix, probably it was the green one. Drove us downtown, we got in our room, hung out. Mr. Budgewit said, well, I'm gonna do some running around with some of the other teachers that are here from all over the country. You know, it was a big thing. What are you guys gonna do? You gonna stay in the room? You going anywhere? Well, we're like, no, we're just gonna hang out, smoke cigarettes and watch TV, because back then you could smoke in a motel room. This is, like I said, 1989. So we did. We hung around, talked to the girlfriends on the phone. I think I argued with mine. Another long story. But about 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a knock on the door. I get up, answer the door, there's Mr. Budgewit. You boys all right? We're like, yeah, Mr. Budgewit, we're fine. He's like, I'm making sure you made it to the room all right. And he was, you know. But a couple days prior to all this, a guy named Mel brought a Dodge Aries and a DRB. First time I ever saw one is the scan tool. Very early, you know, it wasn't even OBD2. It was OBD nothing. He would kind of tell us what to look for and this kind of explain to us. He was there to help us, you know, learn the scan tool and take a look at the car. Well, that scan tool in that car came from Palmer Dodge. Because of another guy here in a minute you're going to hear about was friends with Mel. Mel was friends with Mr. Budget. Jerry Budget. Man, he was a good dude. I'd gotten fighting in the class over a girl and got suspended, and he was so mad that, Mike, why are you going to jeopardize your career over a girl? And I'd never thought about it that way. He really made me look at what I was doing. What are you doing? You know. He ended up being a really good friend, and he's going to pop in this series down the road. Jerry Budget. He's already left us, and you know, bless him for sure. He really meant a lot to me, believe it or not. But anyhow, and he let us after school hours. You know, we smoke outside yeah. He was cool. He was a good teacher. So we go to this contest and Raceway Park, and there's, I don't know, probably 20 of these Dodge Aries Ks lined up. They're all the same, and we had a box of parts. Some of those parts could fix the car, or some of the parts wouldn't fix the car. So we had to check lights. Did it turn over? Did it start? Whatnot. I remember we found a few bulbs that didn't work, so we replaced those, and it wouldn't start. And you know who our judge was? Mel. This guy named Mel. I'll never forget him. He had glasses, older guy, and a wooden leg. It might have been plastic, but he had a fake leg. He's holding this box of parts. And I forget what it was. I think it was a pickup plate because it didn't have spark. So there was a pickup plate, and I knew what it was. It took the place of points. So I said, I went to grab it, and he looked at me and went, okay, it's not that part. So we get back to looking. Anyhow, we never did get it started. We got like sixth in the nation. Some stuff, you know. I forget what it was. We didn't do horrible. We didn't win. Of course, then had a good time and all that. Of course, we get called by Lincoln Technical Institute. So they come and pitch it to my mom and dad. Yeah, your son can have this $10,000 scholarship, but you're going to owe $90,000. But you know, and my mom and dad were like, nope, no. You want to go? You pay for it. We're not paying for you to go to that. You already know how to work on cars. You don't need to go do that. They were right. They were right. I'd have wasted 2 years of my life and a whole bunch of money to learn stuff I already knew. For the most part. Man, I can make a video on that. Anyhow. Right about time, it was graduation time. Mr. Budget said, Mike, I got something I want to ask you, you know. I said, well, sure. What's up, Mr. Budget? He said, you remember Mel that helped you with the contest? I said, yeah. He said, well, he's friends with the service manager at Palmer Dodge West. I believe that's pretty close to your house. And I'm like, yeah, that's right down the street. He goes, well, if you're interested in working there after you graduate, they'd be interested in talking to you. I'm like, okay, heck yeah. So I don't remember if he called him and said he'll be here then, or he gave me their phone number and who to ask for. I don't remember all that. But I do remember, by the time I graduated high school, it's a couple of days before, I had a 70, by this time, I was destroying vehicles one after another. I had a 73 Buick Apollo, just like a Nova. That thing would do burnouts for 8 miles, right? And it did. Well, that's what got me in trouble. Bald tires in the rain, whoo, 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 wrapped it around a tree, just a couple of days before graduation. So I rode my bicycle down there to the, you know, I walked in Harry McDaniel's office. And they're sitting with him, George Harlan. We're going to put some pictures up here. And these guys with these pictures, if I can find them, man, Harry McDaniel turned out to be like my grandpa, a really good friend, as well as George. George and I had a different kind of relationship, but these are people that I knew for close to 30 years before they passed away. But that's them there, you know. Harry's the guy with the cigar. George is the one with the discontented look on his face. But I walked in that office, and I don't think I even sat down. Standing there, they're like, "Oh, so you think you want to work here?" I'm like, "Yeah." You want to be a mechanic? And I'm like, "Yeah, I've wanted to be a mechanic since I was a little kid." They said, "Well, where do you see yourself going in this business?" I looked at both of them. I said, "I want to take your jobs." Boy, they laughed. They had to laugh for at least 18 minutes. I thought they were going to pee all over themselves. I was kind of embarrassed, you know. I thought, because I was serious. I thought, no, I want to do what you do. And that's kind of what I meant. And they just laughed and laughed, and they said, "Boy, you're going to wish someday you never said that." Guess what? They were right. I did their jobs. Don't want it no more. But that kind of brings us to the end of the first episode of Tales from a Technician. And here at the end, I'm going to stick you a picture up. You've probably already seen it. And this picture is about a year or two after I already started, because my hair was cut. There's a story behind that, but we'll talk about that in the next episode. But remember, everybody's path isn't always what you think it is, or you think is going to be. It always takes people to kind of nudge you around where you need to be, whether they know it or not, whether you know it or not. If you look back, it's always people. And I had some really good people in my life. Luckily, a few of them are still around. But as we get going through this series, you're going to, you know, like the next video you see, we're going to be working on an MGA. This thing, I ain't forgot about it. It's all right. It's going to get worked on. Trust me, big plans. I'm just not sure what they are exactly, but I got big ones, okay? So, remember, peace, guys. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.